Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today, but first I have a question. Jeff.
Yes?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. As some of you might know, I recently got a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing really good.
Pepper was her name, right?
Yep, Pepper. She's a Chihuahua mix. She's super cute. And we've been having some challenges getting her to eat regularly.
Sure.
But this morning and this afternoon, we got her. She ate out of her bowl and cleaned out her bowl all on her own. It was
cool.
It was great. We just changed up what we were feeding her a little bit. Yeah, because she doesn't like boring regular kibbles. She's not super into hard, crunchy food, which I think is a thing with smaller dogs.
Sure.
Because of their smaller mouth and things like that. Like they have a bit of a challenge with like crunchy pieces, which is why you want to get them like small, or like you got to get small breed food for them. Yeah. But I picked up some stuff that's a little bit softer, but then I also have just like a broth I pour over top that kind of softens it up a little bit.
Sure.
And she apparently loves it, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, good job. Yeah, I know. Last episode you were having some difficulty with that, so good to hear that figured something out.
Yep. So we're doing good. We're doing good. She's got a full belly right now, and it looks cute because she has, like I said, we've been like getting her to eat little bits here and there, but like today's the first day I've seen her eat a full meal like all at once by herself, and like she's got a big full belly and it's cute.
Oh, cool.
So how are you doing?
I am on top of the world.
Woo! Okay.
So I have 2 weeks off from work.
Woo!
Now, I knew I was going to get 1 week off from work because our workplace every year, or usually every year, shuts down for some amount of time, either 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. This year, we were only told we were going to be shut down for 1 week.
Yeah.
But 2 or 3 days ago, like the day before our weekend, we were told, oh, we're actually closing for 2 weeks. And it's not like at the end, we're closing early. In fact, you're out of here tomorrow and then you're out for 2 weeks. So of all of the announcements we could have gotten, that's the best possible one. All the time we're like, we find out, oh, we have to work extra. Like, oh, you can't leave early. You have to stay and work a couple extra hours at the end of the week. Nope. This time they were like, hey, next week, don't come in.
Right.
And oh my goodness, I am so excited because, I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to get done in that 1 week. And now I have 2 weeks to get it all done. And I get time to relax. And I get time to make a ton of food. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited.
All right, that's great.
Oh, my goodness. So after we get done recording today, I'm going to go make a pumpkin cheesecake.
Ooh.
I've got some ribs that I'm going to make. I know last time I made some ribs, they turned out awful. So I'm going to try another time. I haven't smoked any ribs since then, so I'm going to try a different way this time.
Right, yeah.
Hopefully they turn out delicious.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get it down this time.
Yeah, I might make a turkey next week. We have a turkey we've been hanging on to for a while because there was some special occasion that was supposed to be going on that never happened or whatever. So I'm
You're doing all the big hits.
Last night, I made a Cajun chicken Alfredo that I've made plenty of times. It's delicious every time. It was particularly delicious this time. And listeners, I have a special tip that I want to share.
You teased me with this earlier, so I'm excited to know what this is.
So all the time, like, I've made Alfredo. I've gotten Alfredo from restaurants. And if you ever have leftovers and then you heat up any sort of like cream-based sauce or whatever, it's probably going to separate a little bit. It's not quite going to be the same consistency.
Yeah.
But I got this tip. Somebody online told me that when you heat it up, if you mix in just a little bit of milk or cream,
sure,
it gets it back to the same consistency it was. And not only that, I just had some leftovers that were better than it was when I first made it because I mixed in a little bit of milk. Like I microwaved it for like 30 seconds, mixed in some milk, and then microwaved for, oh my goodness, it was so good, Jeff. I'm in such a good mood.
such a good mood from microwave Alfredo.
Yes. Well, I mean, also the 2 weeks off from work.
Right. No, that is a thing, because it's like when a sauce like that separates, like there's ways to like re-emulsify the sauce and kind of bring it all back together.
Sure.
And like, because I know when you're making pasta dish, like, you know, like early in my life, you would always just drain the noodles out in the sink basically, and then you'd pour all the pasta water down the drain, when really you want to save some of that, because
that's what I've been learning. Yeah,
because it's like you want to, because it's all of that starch that came off of the pasta while it was cooking, while it was boiling, is now in the water. So now you have this like basically the starch solution that you can add to your sauces to kind of help thicken them up.
Yeah.
And it just makes sauces so much better and easier to work with. You're like, if your sauce is breaking while you're, you know, mixing it into with the noodles or whatever, add a little bit of pasta water, and it'll kind of like it'll loosen it up a little bit if it's getting too thick, or but it'll kind of bring everything together. I don't know, it's really good.
Cool.
Making pasta is delicious. I like pasta.
Yep. Well, so this is your weekly episode of Dinner Party Conflict.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we do little snippets every once in a while.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited about the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to try and play some D&D. We have you and I are in a monthly game, and we're going to maybe see if we can fit an extra game of that in sometime in the next week or two. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah,
sounds good.
So yeah, great stuff. I'm super excited. All right. What do we do? What do we do, Jeff? What do we do now?
You know what? Maybe we should start the episode.
Okay. All right, let's do that. All right. So Jeff, I want you to imagine that your neighbor, you know, we maybe have some new listeners. And for any new listeners out there, I just want to let you know the understood canon of the story so far is that Jeff's neighbor is a red dragon, a very large red dragon.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, unfortunately, your neighbor has moved away.
Oh no! Aw.
Yeah, he got a job somewhere off in Faerun or something, and
nice.
So he moved away. You helped him move, and then on the last day of the move, he told you, you know, hey, I think I'm gonna have to leave some stuff behind here. If you want it, it's yours. Just stop by after we're gone. I'll leave them. You know, you've got a spare copy of the key. Just come on in, and whatever's left, it's all yours. It's all yours, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Well,
so.
Thanks,
he bids you farewell. You see him drive away, and then, you know, you're standing there, and you've got the key in your hand, and you see the house. Do you want to go check out what's in there?
Yeah, I'm gonna go check it out. What did he leave behind?
So you open up the door, and your part of you is expecting, like, did he leave like that sander he borrowed that one time, or you know. I don't know. Maybe some treasure. You know the rumors that he was secretly rich, hid stuff in the walls. Who knows?
Right.
But you get inside and you don't see any treasure. You don't see that sander. You're pretty sure he took it with him, which is kind of a jerk move. But you see that there's a big box of fireworks.
Ooh, all right.
And you see it's even got like there's a little note on top that says, you know, for Jeff, thanks for all of the help. I don't even remember how long ago we established this, but it's probably been a couple of years, to be perfectly honest. He's been your neighbor for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So you go over and you pick up the note. What you don't realize, though, is that the note was actually rigged, and when you pull on it, one of the fireworks lights up, and the fuse starts burning and burning and burning.
Oh, geez.
Give me a dexterity saving throw to dive for cover.
Okay. Oh no, a 5.
Okay, so you take 9 points of damage, unfortunately.
Oh, geez.
But as you stand up, so there's a big explosion. You know, sparks shooting everywhere. You hear some, streaking of something across the. You hear, lots of stuff blow up. Maybe the structural integrity of the house might have been compromised. But anyway. You stand up, you dust yourself off. You got some scrapes and some bruises. But when the smoke clears, you see that there's a big hole in the wall. And you realize that the rumors of hidden treasure in the walls was true. Because behind the drywall, between the studs, like you think it's probably between the living room and the bathroom, you see there's a big pile of gold that is now spilling out, and gold and diamonds and rubies and all that kind of stuff. And you realize that you have found, you were bequeathed the dragon's hoard.
Am I now the dragon?
Yes, actually.
That firework that hit me is turned me into a dragon.
Yeah, oddly enough, you didn't take any fire damage. In fact, when you cough, now you shoot fire from your mouth. Jeff was the dragon all along, everybody. That's the twist. So today's magic item was submitted by Arcanist Winterbrand via email. And the item is called, and it's in quotation marks, the item is called the Red Dragon. Originally designed as a firework by the Ifrit living in the City of Brass, this metal sphere, roughly the size of an orange, has been repurposed as a distraction tool by thieves and adventurers. This object may be thrown as an action up to 20 feet and produce the following effects centered on the sphere. So, as an action, you toss the thing, and then it goes off. The visage of a young red dragon rises from the fiery explosion, breathing fire in huge swaths as it flies into the air. All creatures within 10 feet of the object must make a DC 15 Dex save or take 3d8 fire damage, half as much on a success. All creatures that have line of sight to the object must make a DC 15 Wisdom save or be frightened until the end of your next turn. Creatures that took fire damage from this object have disadvantage on this check.
Oh, cool.
Creatures who have knowledge of the object have advantage on the check. So if you know it's coming, if you know what it is,
sure,
you have advantage. All creatures within 20 feet of the object other than you must make a DC 15 con save or be blinded until the end of your next turn. Alternatively, you may automatically succeed if you spend your reaction to avert your eyes. Creatures that are blind are immune to this effect. So,
cool.
It's a metal ball. You throw it, it blows up. Big, striking show of Ifrit engineering as this, spark-filled red dragon flies off. And then Dex save against damage, Wisdom save against being frightened, Con save against being blinded.
Neat.
So,
that's pretty cool.
It was just recently, 4th of July was a little over a week ago. So I thought this was fitting for the season, I suppose. And I mentioned in previous episodes that Arcanist Winterbrand submitted several consumables, and this is one of them. So
yeah, no, I like
think there's one more. I'll see if we do it next week.
Yeah, this is cool. Like I could see a series of like firework based consumables like this.
Sure,
that'd be pretty cool. Different colors of dragons or different creatures has different effects or something. I don't know. This is really cool. I like this.
There are a couple small things that I would change just to make the mechanics fit together a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So I like the fire damage. I like that part. There's the bit about the save versus being frightened, that if you took fire damage, you have disadvantage on the check.
Sure.
Everyone who was within 10 feet took damage unless they have evasion, because it's a half on a success. I'm wondering if that should have been if they failed the Dex save, they have disadvantage on the check, or if it's meant to just be anyone not in the 10 feet. If you're like 15 feet away,
right,
you don't have disadvantage.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's Like, so like if you're within the 10 feet, you're gonna get, you're the target, you're the intended target. So
sure,
it's you want it to be more likely for them to get affected by it. So I guess that
And then the third effect, the con save or be blinded. It says you may automatically succeed if you spend your reaction to avert your eyes. I am wondering if that is meant, because like anybody could do that.
Right.
The user is already immune to that effect. So I'm wondering if it is meant to be that anyone, as long as they have if they're willing to spend their reaction, can negate that third one, or if there is meant to be some sort of a check or something to see if they can realize that they can do that. I don't know. It just seems it makes it a little bit less powerful if literally anyone can just spend their reaction to not be blinded.
Sure.
I mean, maybe that's intentional, because if it does deprive them of their reaction that turn.
Yeah, and I mean, like with everything else, the item's already pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's not like the worst thing. Because like at the very least, it is gonna use up their reaction. Which if it's a device that's supposed to distract people, it's the thing
that's a good point. Yeah.
You can basically run away. Like you no longer need to.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't have to disengage. You're using the action to throw this, and then you can run away, knowing that they're either going to be closing their eyes and using up their reaction, or they're going to be blind, or they might be blinded.
Okay. Another thing I was going to say was I feel like you should be able to throw it further than 20 feet, but if the goal is to be a distraction, then maybe that's intended.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. 20 feet just seems, especially considering the radius of one of the effects is 20 feet. 20 feet just seems a little low.
Sure. Although I think that's the typical range of like a throwing weapon.
Okay.
Like if it's just like a throwing axe or something like that, or a throwing dagger. I think it's like 20 feet. Maybe it's 30, but I feel like
but you can throw it beyond that. You just have disadvantage.
True.
Whereas with this, since you're not making an attack roll.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
But I mean, if it is just, I don't know, for whatever reason, only works if you only throw it 20 feet. That's fine, I guess. It is mainly to serve as a distraction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was really cool. I thought it's got some cool effects on there. I really like how if you took damage from the first effect, you have disadvantage on the wisdom save.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I think it's pretty well done.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Makes me think of the dragon firework in the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Oh, sure, yeah. It actually, it made me think of like summons in Final Fantasy games.
Where
the
they're
first
just like
10 of them or whatever, where it's just a big thing of damage.
Yeah, it's basically just a big showy spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I really like this. So that'll do it for the Dragon's Horde. Once again, that was The Red Dragon, submitted by Arcanist Winterbrand. Thank you very much, Arcanist Winterbrand. Jeff, if anybody else wanted to be like them and they wanted to submit magic items for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre or retirement village or laboratory or whatever else we're doing in our final segment, or if they want to submit questions for our main segment, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com or join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
That's correct. And before we go any further, we have a giveaway to give away today.
Ooh.
As usual, we're giving away a copy of 3 supplements from Crit Academy: the War Mind, which is a cleric domain, the Skybreaker, which is a fighter archetype, and the Werecat, which is a player race, as well as a few other supplements of theirs that they are including in that bundle. So it's a cool little bundle of some great little player options. So Jeff, who is the winner of these 3 or more supplements today?
Today's winner is James M.
Winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, James M. You should be getting that in your email pretty soon, within the next few days. Be sure to leave Crit Academy a review for each of these, because each product can get a review, and the more reviews they have, the more attention they get. Also, the more they can know to work on making their future products better. So they are currently still in their Kickstarter for Capes and Crooks, so I'm sure they can use all the attention they can get. So please, please, please leave them reviews on these great products. So yeah. So a big thank you to Crit Academy for facilitating this giveaway, as they've facilitated our many previous giveaways. Congratulations to James M. Jeff, if anybody else wanted to be like James M. and they wanted to enter this drawing, how would they enter the drawing to win these great products?
They can enter by sending us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Crit3 in the subject line.
That's correct. And we are very, very, very low on people on the list. So if you enter the drawing now, it is very likely you will win very, very soon. So please, please, please get into that drawing.
Yeah.
Do you love Interparty Conflict? You know, the show you're listening to right now?
Yeah!
Then check out their Patreon at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. You can help support the show and get tons of bonus content too. Access hundreds of outtakes, dozens of short stories, periodic updates about the behind the scenes of the show, personalized media, a monthly Roll20 game run by Gabe himself, and more. Every month, Green and Red Tier patrons get access to the bonus podcast InterPatronConflict, where Gabe and Jeff cover a wide variety of topics. Join right now and access the most recent episode, which might sound a little something like this.
Basically, you mix slime and sand together, and it's just kind of becomes like this. It's almost like a very airy kneaded eraser. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, yeah.
Or you like the erasers, you can just kind of pull them apart.
Yeah.
It's like that, but like if you pull apart a kneaded eraser fine enough, it kind of becomes like really soft.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just like an extra like soft and like form of that, and it was like it was interesting to play with. They were like molding stuff with it and everything. And it was kind of cool. And I was just sort of like playing with it. I'm like, this is kind of fun, and like it was like I was expecting like if you pull it apart, it's just like chunks of sand are going to be falling out, but it was like staying together really well. So like apparently the slime technology has gotten better since I had any.
How do you improve on slime?
Apparently you add sand to it.
Once again, go to patreon.com/InterPartyConflict to help out the show and access all that bonus content today. And then one more thing, just check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. Please check out their Kickstarter. It's called Capes and Crooks. It's a 5th edition based superhero system. So they took the base rules of 5th edition D&D and made them into a superhero game on its own. So check that out. I think by the time this episode goes out, it's going to have like one more week or something. So check that out ASAP. Also check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They're an actual play podcast on the network. Check out D&D Character Lab and check out The Kind GM. Both of those podcasts are on hiatus, but they still got some great stuff you can go back and listen to. So go check those out. Enough of all the admin. Let's get into some questions, Jeff.
All right. Our first question comes from David C. on email, and they ask, what changes would you make to best adapt a pre-written adventure for a party of 3 PCs?
Yeah. I feel like we've touched on this in the past, but I don't think we've ever specifically covered.
Yeah, this is something we've definitely touched on because this is something we do pretty regularly. At least you do regularly. Yeah.
I just personally I prefer a smaller group, and 3 players, like 2 players is too few.
Yeah,
3 players I find is like just right.
Right.
But the thing is, a lot of modules are written for 4 or 5 PCs.
Right. Yeah. Some of them are as many as like 5 to like 8 PCs or something ridiculous.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I don't know who plays in groups that big, but
actually, our next Patreon game that's coming up pretty soon is very well could have close to that, because it seems like just about everybody is going to be present. So
yeah, this is something we touched on just because like at the very least, in my experience, like I've only really played in groups of 3.
Pretty much. Yeah.
On occasion, I've played in bigger groups, but like only maybe for like a few adventures.
Sure. So I guess I would say the easiest thing to do is give them like an NPC that follows along and just acts as a damage sponge and whatever. Yeah. Preferably hand off that NPC to another player or something so that the players can control them instead of the DM having just yet another person to control. Also, of course, we've talked about you don't want to fall into the trap of having what's essentially a DM PC. Like, you don't want them to have too much spotlight.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be a player. You're trying to just shore up some of the defenses that the players might need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an easy solution.
Yeah, because like one of the biggest things is action economy.
Yes.
Because like with only 3 players, you only have 3 actions or 3 attacks that can be made or whatever per turn, whereas like the enemies they could be up against 8 goblins or something, and that's intended for a party of 5 or 6 people to go against. So yeah, giving the players basically more actions per round by giving them an extra character to deal with. Now, we did not too long ago talk about the newer sidekick rules.
Yes. Oh, man, those sidekick rules are so good.
Yeah, they were great. And so I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to use something like that. Like, throw in a couple sidekicks.
Give them a wolf that has warrior levels or whatever the fighter equivalent of sidekicks was.
Right, yeah, give everybody a sidekick. Like, if there's a ranger in your group, yeah, give them a wolf. That's their animal companion. Because I know like animal companion isn't as huge in the 5th edition ranger,
Sure,
as it was in past editions. So like now they have a like fully fledged, like basically another character wolf, and then like that's really cool. Or if it's the paladin maybe has a squire.
okay, yeah.
Or the wizard has a really powerful familiar,
Sure.
give him a sidekick that plays to their class. I'm trying to think of something for each class, like a rogue or something.
I mean, the rogue could just have like just somebody to stand in front of them or make a distraction or whatever.
Yeah, just like a bodyguard kind of thing.
Yeah.
The bard could have like a backup singer or something.
Sure.
A hype man.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For anybody who isn't familiar with the sidekick rules, in episode 217, I just looked up what number it was. Episode 217, we talked all about it. It's that's a great episode, so go back and listen to it.
Yeah, we were both really excited about it. So yeah, go and listen to that one. Well, yeah, so that's a way to kind of buff up the player side. What are like some adjustments we can make on like the DM side, like less enemies or that kind of thing?
Less enemies is probably the going to be the most effective solution, because like you were saying, the action economy is really what's gonna turn the tide of battle more often than not.
Yeah.
So if there's an encounter, like I would say maybe decrease every encounter by like maybe a quarter of the enemies.
Sure.
And I mean, hey, you can always add in more enemies if the battle starts to go south. Just have more of them show up or whatever.
Right. Yeah. You can always bring in more. It's like salt in food. Like,
sure.
It's hard to get rid of it once you've put too much, but
sure.
It's a lot easier to just add more if you don't have enough.
Yeah. So like reducing enemies is a pretty simple way to do it. Another thing, in a different episode, we touched on how big of a difference it would make if enemies' AC was a lot lower.
Right, yes.
Like if the battle is already meant to be just one big boss and then the party, it can really make a huge difference if the party is able to hit almost every attack.
Right. Yeah, that is big.
Yeah, not only will that make like a big difference mechanically, it'll make the players feel awesome.
Yeah. I do remember. Yeah, that discussion, because I feel like that is sort of a win-win.
Yeah.
Because like one, you're less likely to lose an action, because like attacking and missing is basically like doing nothing. It doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. And when you have so few actions per round as a smaller group, like it's such a big blow to be like the fighter, and you run up and you swing your sword and you miss, and well, okay, we're screwed. Because now we have to go through 5 enemies worth of attacks, and we have to survive all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe in that time, the one person who had a high enough attack to get past that AC goes down.
Yeah.
So like I feel like lowering the AC, and even like you could even bump up the hit points a bit, maybe, but like I feel like
the counter.
Yeah, but I feel like a good balance is to lower the AC, just so that the players are going to hit more often.
Sure. So yeah, reducing the enemies AC, those are a couple ways you can do it. Another thing that I would do is just maybe be open to players negotiating their way out of combat more often.
Okay.
Depending on the DM, they might already be doing that to begin with. But I've actually noticed a lot of the time in the few times that Jay has run for us, because like you were saying, the group we've been, it's you, me, Jay, and Steve. It's been the 4 of us for quite a while. So whenever Jay runs a game, I've noticed that it's usually pretty easy to avoid a combat entirely if that's what our goal is.
Sure.
So maybe if you are afraid that the players, there's only 3 players and you're afraid that they're going to die in this upcoming battle, put in an opportunity for the players to negotiate their way out of it, or, strike a deal or intimidate or something, because then you can still involve them in a way that won't necessarily get them killed, and it'll let them get past the encounter so they can go on and experience the rest of the adventure.
Also thinking like if the battle starts and the players are realizing, oh, this is pretty much a lost cause, like
sure,
it might be a little bit trickier, but maybe put in some way for like them to like surrender.
Okay.
In some ways, like it's not always going to work. Like obviously, if you're up against a pack of wild animals, like you can't really surrender to a pack of wild animals.
Sure.
Well,
maybe you think that they're wild animals, but then the druid comes out from the trees and calls the enemies off.
Sure. Yeah. So like that. Yeah, that could be an out. Yeah, like giving the players outs. So like way to surrender, and then maybe you lock them in a makeshift prison that they then have to escape from. But like,
sure.
At least in that way, they're not against 8 enemies. They're against like they have to get make skill checks to get out of the cell, and then they have to fight like 2 guards at a time as they're making their way out of whatever encampment or whatever. So it's a way to like, if they bite off more than they can chew, then they get captured, and then they can kind of slowly make their way out. And so it's like, it's a penalty in a way that it's, slows down their progress, but it doesn't kill them,
Yeah. Honestly, I think that surrender should be an option so much more often than it is. I feel like it's never even viewed as an option by the players, never viewed as an option by the DM.
Yeah.
Try it, I guess. Players, try it. DMs, try it.
Yeah, and I mean, like the NPCs, if they surrender like that, like that doesn't happen too often. Because it's for whatever reason, minions are like diehards for their masters in D&D. So like, I don't know, like have the last like 3 goblins like say like, hey, screw this, we surrender, please don't hurt us. And then if the players go, okay, fine, get out of here, cool. But maybe there's that one player that's like, no, I want to, I want to finish these guys off, and that can create some like inter-party conflict.
Yeah,
but it could make for some interesting situations. So like surrender as an option should come up more.
Yes. Another thing is the enemies might underestimate the players because there's only 3 of them.
Sure.
There might be an encounter that maybe the big bad sends his minions off to go do something else because, it's just 3 of them. I can swat them like flies.
Right. Yeah. Buffing up the players in some way, like giving them magic items beyond what they would normally have at that level, or
that's probably what I would do, is just I would give the players a lot of magic items.
Yeah, because like
I love magic items.
Yeah, magic items are fun. Other stuff is like like house rule, some like an extra feat or some extra class abilities or something. Sure, depending on what system you're using, you could give them this or that. Because I mean, like currently in our Pathfinder 2nd edition, because there's only 3 of us, like we have we basically have extra some bonus feats, effectively, and like it makes it kind of fun because like you get a lot more options that way as far as building the characters. So I'm having a blast having more options.
Sure, yeah.
But it also adds just a little bit more oomph to our party, so it's not so scary going up against stuff that's, built for a bigger party.
Yeah. So make the players more powerful, make the enemies weaker. There's lots of little things that you can do, and just pick and choose whichever ones you think will work best for your group and see how it goes.
Yeah.
If bad turns to worse, just let them surrender.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like, I feel, and again, with like the salt analogy, like always go less and then add more later. If you feel like you've made it too easy, you can always make it more difficult later, but going the other way can be a little bit more tricky.
What's happened with our Patreon games, not that it's this exact scenario, because we haven't had a problem of only 3 PCs, but I keep thinking to myself, the combats haven't been very deadly. So then I'll like plan the next encounter to be even deadlier. But then they go and they find some way to completely avoid the encounter entirely. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll try to make the next encounter really deadly. And nope, they found a way around that one too.
Yeah, they found a way to rap battle their way out of that.
Exactly. And I can't fault them for it. I mean, whatever works. I don't want the players to feel like their efforts are in vain.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Pretty good story. And if you go to our Patreon, the I did record the rap battle. It is on there.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
So,
all right. Our next question comes from Fumble Through on Reddit, and they ask, what are some creative ways you have dealt with missing roles in a party?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we said about the previous question is also going to apply to this. So this is not necessarily you have missing players or like, you have too few players, but it's specifically when you don't have a tank or you don't have a healer or you don't have a trap smith or whatever.
Yeah, or you don't have a caster, you don't have any ranged, ranged characters,
Yeah, so it's a similar problem. A lot of what we said can still apply. You can give them an NPC that has some of the traits that the party is lacking. I know that when we were doing the Age of Worms adventure path, there was a point a few sessions in where you guys realized like you didn't have an arcane caster and you also didn't have a person that could like, open lock, disable device, that kind of stuff. And we had talked about it and I had thought about making an NPC that would fulfill a role in the party that would basically just be along to cast arcane magic and open locks and stuff. And I was going to introduce this NPC. I even had them worked out as like there was part of the story that they would have fit into pretty well. But by the time that it would have came time to introduce that character, you guys had decided, I think we can probably get by on our own. So I just didn't do it. I just didn't introduce that NPC at all.
Okay.
So I was going to do that. Like that was something that I had in mind. You can do that. You can give them, like we said, you can give them a sidekick that is a tank. You can give them a sidekick that's a caster. You can give them a sidekick that is a rogue or whatever.
Yeah. Give them, if it's like healing they're missing, like give them a lot more magic items, like a wand of cure wounds or something.
Wand of cure wounds. You could maybe make some house rules that whenever they take a short rest, they get all their hit points back or something instead of a long rest,
Right. And I mean, like that's something you could put into a magic item too. Like, know, like you don't have to like write a new rule for your group that maybe, if it doesn't work out super well, you can just be like, oh, well, that was a part of a magic item. You guys don't have that in this next adventure or whatever.
Okay. So maybe like they get a wand that it takes an hour, but fully heals the whole party.
Yeah.
And then at some point it stops working or it breaks or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. It's got so many, only so many charges, and then they have to go to a place to recharge it or something.
Sure. I've felt that a lot of different, a lot of the player archetypes and stuff aren't quite as vital as you'd think. I mean, healing's important, but as long as the players have, ways to escape if things start to get too hairy, if they can make it through the current encounter, if they're able to leave and then go back to town and get healed up and rest and whatnot, they can crawl along without a healer. You might have to change up the pacing of the encounter of the adventures a little bit. Maybe make the adventures a little bit less time sensitive, because if they have time to go back to town, that'll work out a little bit better for them. If it's something like they don't have a tank, you can, maybe replace like a big strong enemy with like a bunch of smaller enemies that spread out their attacks more. Stuff like skills like opening locks or casting arcane magic, a lot of that, again, if it's not time sensitive, a lot of that can be supplemented by, well, we went back to town and we bought some specialized tools, or we did some research to find out, how to bypass this magical phenomenon or whatever.
Sure.
Really just taking away or diminishing the time requirement lets you sort of get by a lot of these problems with less of an issue.
Yeah, so if the players aren't worried about like, oh, if we leave now or if we rest, like the bad guys will like respawn or recuperate or
Yeah.
or whatever, like or will prepare themselves better. So yeah, if you kind of like hand wave that a little bit to where it's not that big of a deal if the players like kill the first room of the dungeon and then leave and then come back the next day, it's not going to be like, like maybe there'll be an extra trap or something.
Sure.
But, maybe don't have it be like everybody's on high alert, like, because I don't know, like I feel like if you're like in a camp of goblins or a cave of kobolds or something like that, like you're going to get attacked from every now and then. You've already got the defenses you're going to have.
Sure.
Like you're used to this kind of thing, adventurers coming in and clearing you out.
Yeah. And then, if the missing rolls is the result of just too many players choosing the same role or whatever, like I remember in 4th edition, it was a very common DM's lament of somebody would be on a message board and they'd be like, oh, my party is 5 strikers. What do I do? Strikers being the class, that's just the class role that's just all about dealing damage really quickly.
Yeah.
And, there are problems with that, but there's also ways you can make that really fun. If you put in enemies that their whole thing is if you kill them fast enough, they can't even get to you, then play that up. Don't make every encounter like that. Don't make every encounter something that the players can just blast their way through everything. But once in a while, or even like maybe a third to half of the time, that's going to be really fun for players. And then when there's an encounter where they can't do that, it's going to be especially noteworthy.
Sure.
If they're going through this goblin's nest and every single goblin encounter they get to, they can like time their attacks and just bam, 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 blast their way through, bam, 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 blast their way through. And then they run into one that, it's like a swarm and their attacks are almost useless because they can't focus fire anymore or whatever. Something like that to scare them into appreciating the way that the battle was set up beforehand, set up previously. So just, getting the players to appreciate the roles that they do have can get them to maybe overlook some of the roles that they're missing, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know if that made any sense, but, play up the strengths of the party. Don't just try to make every battle need a tank and a healer and an arcane caster and so on.
Yeah. Right. You adjust it to be, if it's an all damaging party, have things be a bit more bullet spongy.
Sure.
But do mix it up every once in a while just to kind of, like keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
Or if all the party is healers,
yeah,
I guess have damage output be more, I guess, from your enemies.
Speaking again of our Patreon games, that's kind of how this current campaign started. I think it was 4 players at first, and 3 of them were clerics. So,
nice.
It was 3 clerics and a fighter rogue.
Okay. All right.
So it was interesting. I don't our sessions have been largely role play and exploration. There has been a good amount of combat, but it's been less of a focus. So it hasn't been as big of a problem as it could have been, but it's still funny. Still funny when everybody was pretty much the same class.
All right, our next question comes from Sean M. on Facebook, and they ask, what do you do when your character isn't built to be a leader, but nobody else at the table takes the initiative?
Yeah, so this is kind of similar to the last question, but this is more role-playing based. You're in a group and maybe some of the players are new. Maybe they're just more like the sit in the back and watch everything type. But when the group gets together, it becomes clear that nobody's really taking initiative. No pun intended. Nobody is really like being the face of the party. Everyone's kind of just looking around at each other and wondering when the adventure is going to start.
Yeah.
I think the simplest answer is be the change you wish to see in the world. If the party doesn't have a leader and nobody's taking initiative, do it, even if your character isn't built to be, if you don't have a high charisma, that can be a problem, but it's not, it's not the end of the world. It's not the biggest problem.
I think the biggest challenge with this is that, like, if you have a character that really is just not suited for leadership, like if you're trying to be like the sneaky rogue that pickpockets everybody, and like, you're trying to be the rogue that the leader paladin hates.
Sure.
But the player playing the paladin just isn't taking the initiative. What do you do? Like, how do you role play that is a little bit difficult, because I remember playing a lizard folk druid that was supposed to be like very feral in his personality, and being like one of the more experienced players at the table. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had to kind of like, I didn't want to force these newer players into playing the way I play just because just because I played before. So I didn't want to take the lead because I didn't want to take that away from them.
I've been in that situation before. I had a character. I feel like I've mentioned him on the show before, not before at some point, but I don't know how much I've gone into him. But I had a character named Bariah. He was a Davos, was a 4th edition game, and I had planned him to just be kind of like a Zen contemplative type. Maybe dispensing wisdom, but ultimately like sitting back until someone else had made, a decision. And when the game started, I realized like, oh, nobody else in this group has played before.
Right.
It's just me. And so I did end up having to change my concept for the character and play him more as, okay, he's an adventurer. He knows a lot about adventuring. So he's going to lead the party to go on this adventure. But again, like you were saying, I didn't want to force the rest of the party. I know force is kind of a strong word, but even just through, just through my demeanor, I didn't want to too strongly encourage the rest of the party to do exactly what I wanted to do. So I did kind of, at times, I would go out of character and I would say, you guys don't have to do this, but my character wants to do this.
Right.
It's a little weird. I'm sure that new players would probably still go along with that, even if they were given that disclaimer at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Or like giving out of character suggestions.
Sure.
To be the leader, but out of character. And like, that comes with its own difficulties, because like, again, it's sort of like you're pushing people to do things your way.
Yeah. And some groups are very against that idea of like suggesting stuff. There's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong. I'm sure a lot of the people that do it don't mean to do it, but some groups will like push hard against people that do that. So be wary, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. I mean, but usually when it comes to it, like, and it might not be for all situations in the group, like maybe one session, the person who is usually speaking up and doing the leading is just not feeling it that day, or they're not there that day or whatever. Like, if I feel like there's no forward momentum, no matter what, I'll try to be like if I am just if I'm just sort of like the quiet contemplative or the feral character that doesn't do the talking anyway, maybe I'll go and do something brash that will kind of kick things in a direction. So like, nobody's opening up the door because they think it's trapped, and
sure.
and nobody is deciding what to do. I'll be like, well, my character's not that intelligent. He's just going to go and open the door and just kind of kick things off. If whatever happens, like, like if my character ends up getting hurt really bad, at least that's forward momentum. Yeah.
I would say, like, even if you are concerned about, well, I don't want to push the rest of the party into doing what I want, it is better for the party to be moving than not moving, even if it is moving in a direction that you might feel guilty about. So yeah, if there just isn't anybody else in the party who is willing to or capable of being the leader, sometimes you just have to, even if your character isn't built for it. Maybe see if you can remake your character after the first session to be more leader-like. Maybe I don't know, like ideally, this is something that should have been worked out in session 0.
Sure. Yeah.
If everybody mentioned what types of characters they were going to be playing, it should have been obvious who is going to be, taking the lead. But hey, perfect world, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. There was like the couple sessions that we did of Pathfinder where I was DMing with the pirate adventure.
Yeah.
One thing I was at the beginning when we were making when you guys were making your characters, I was like, okay, we're gonna be on a ship. The ship needs a captain.
Right.
Like, do one of you want to be the captain? Like, I can have an NPC be the captain, and that'll be that.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be an easy way for me to be like, okay, I'm the captain, go do this.
Sure.
That's fine enough. But I also left it open, like, okay, do one of you guys want to be the captain? And then that sort of opens up the idea of like, okay, who's going to be the leader? Like,
sure.
So maybe the DM can set up a specific slot for there being a leader, just so somebody can volunteer for it. And if nobody volunteers for it, then at the very least, you need to work around that somehow.
Yeah. And that worked really well for us because we were on a ship. So to have the captain be an NPC or be a PC, in our case, that was actually me. I played as the captain.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that easily if that's the campaign you're running. But even if it's not, if you just have an NPC that is like the party's quest giver or their benefactor, their patron, in the non-warlock sense,
right.
You can set that up, and then it takes a lot of the responsibility away from the player. In a good way, it takes a lot of the responsibility off the shoulders of the players who might not be equipped to be a leader. If you have an NPC that between every session, they're like, okay, guys, this is what you're going to be doing. Here's the map. Here's your goal. Here's your instructions. And then they can defer back to that leader instead of the players one of them having to take charge and be like, okay, this is what we're doing, and so on.
Yeah. Have an NPC that they can always fall back to.
Yes.
So like if they do feel like they're lost, you can as the DM be like, oh, you guys could always go and ask so-and-so what they think, or, like you can report back to so-and-so and see if they have any insight.
Sure. And so, like I was saying, ideally, this is all stuff that you would work out ahead of time. So the more prep you can do, the better. And I'll use this opportunity to remind everybody of I mentioned the word patron in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And before that, it was in the Rising from the Last War, the Eberron book. Yeah. There are rules on setting up a patron. And what that means is basically you can set up who it is that gets the group together, gives the group their quests, and so on. And it's way more complex than that, because using the rules, I'm thinking specifically of the Eberron rules, although the ones because the ones in Tasha's are a little bit pared down. But using these guidelines, you can look at them and you can decide, okay, we work for an information gathering group. So like the Sharn Inquisitive is a newspaper. We all work for the newspaper in this campaign that we're going to be playing in starting up pretty soon. So in this, the party can have roles, and roles outside of combat is what I'm referring to. So you can decide, okay, this player is going to be the face of the party. This player is going to be the bruiser. This player is going to be the information gatherer or whatever. And so you can set up, in addition to what combat roles you're going to have, you can use these guidelines from these books and say, okay, these are the roles that we're going to serve role-playing wise. And then you've already got that sorted out before the campaign even starts. There's advantages and disadvantages to not doing that. You might want to let that all come out naturally, but if you want that to come out naturally, you're probably not the person asking this question. So it can, especially with a new group, it can be a very awkward first session when you're figuring this sort of stuff out. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to follow behind them, and so on. So if you have this thought ahead of time, if you're doing a session 0, it can be so beneficial to crack open Tasha's or the Rising from the Last War, figure out who the party is going to be working for in the upcoming campaign, and then figure out who's going to be the leader, who's going to be second in command, so on and so on. It'll just give you a much firmer spot to stand on when you first start out. And hey, you can always change it as you go. You can always decide, I think that Jay is better at being the leader than I am, so his character is going to be taking charge from now on.
Sure.
So a little bit of prep will go a long way. If there isn't a chance to do that, or if just everybody's new and you're the only person who knows what they're doing, bite the bullet, be the leader. It may not quite fit your character, but again, you can change that as time goes on. If one of the other players starts to get the hang of their character, maybe pass the torch to them and defer to them moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should not be an awkward thing. It is an awkward thing. It's an awkward situation. It doesn't need to be. And your goal should be to make it not awkward. So do what you got to do. All right. I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today, but we do still have our social media questions. Our last social media question was, what is the coolest potion you have ever received in game? Do you recall what your answer was, Jeff? If you even had an answer, I don't recall if you did.
Gabe, that would probably be the potion of fire resistance.
Okay.
Because it keeps you cool.
Good job, Jeff. Well, mine is the potion of ice.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not
fine.
I think I said it wasn't quite a potion, but there was a campaign I played in where there was like a drug that I found that was being smuggled in potions or something. And it turned people into monsters. Yeah,
that's right. And then somebody drank that like poison like straight out of the bottle.
Well, so here's the thing. The drug itself, although you could drink it as part of a potion, the drug itself was actually a vapor. So one of the players, I found a full vial of just this gas basically. And one of the other players didn't know what it was. So he told the DM, I'm going to pop it open. I'm going to take a whiff. Assuming it's a potion, he's going to see if he can make some sort of a check to determine what it is. And the DM was like, okay, give me a fortitude save. And basically he opened it up and just inhaled the whole thing because he wasn't expecting it to be something he would breathe in.
Right. Yeah.
Went crazy, and I had to use a powerful magic item to restrain him.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, that's the best thing. I couldn't come up with any. I don't really think there have been many times where we found potions that were not just spells,
Sure. Yeah. It wasn't just like a healing potion or something.
Yeah. So we only got a couple responses, actually. We got one on Facebook. Darren W. says, as I've only played a few sessions as a player before switching to DM, a potion of healing is it. But admittedly, my sorcerer Malik did need it. His temper and squishiness was a bit of a hindrance. So yeah, I hear you. Healing potions, they get the job done.
Yep.
Nobody on Twitter, nobody on Reddit. Over on Discord, we got a couple. Lone Wolf Nate says, I got a potion of storm giant strength, but never got a chance to use it.
Ooh.
I think that's the one that makes your strength like 24 or something. 29.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
Right.
Yeah. That. Whew. I like the description on this one. This potion's transparent liquid has floating in it a sliver of a fingernail from a storm giant.
Ugh.
Don't choke on that while you're drinking it. Yeah, so that's a nasty one. Seawood Scribe says, nothing super fancy, but at the right tables, I like introducing addictive potions of healing. Each time you use one, you must make a wisdom save, scaled by potion rarity, and on a fail, you get the flaw, these potions are the solution to most problems. I just want to say, that's the first time I've heard of gaining an addiction as just adding a flaw on your character sheet, and I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Anything that adds traits, bonds, ideals, or flaws to your character, sign me up. I'm on board.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that's used in a lot of like long form RPG video games. Like,
sure,
your character will gain a trait based on like like something will trigger and they will gain a trait, and then like that trait will trigger other events later on in the video game.
Sure.
Shoot, there's a game that I got recently, and I've played around with it a little bit. A Wilder Myth.
Okay.
Wilder Myth. It's like it is sort of looks like set up like a choose your own adventure like storybook but you have like these characters, and like there'll be just like sort of random events that happen, or you'll be going along in a story, and like they'll like it's sort of some like randomly generated but mixed with like some pre-written like events and things. Okay. And there's a bit of a like you'll get to like choose your own adventure style, like choose what happens. So like you come across a chest, and like you say, okay, do you want to try to open the chest, or do you want to leave it alone, or or whatever. And like you might maybe you open it up and it's a trap, and the trap like shoots fire at your character, and now your character is burned. Okay. And so like now you have the burned trait, and so like next time you're, I don't know, maybe later on you'll come across something that is fire related, and like maybe you'll get like some fire powers or something.
Okay.
So like things that affect your character sheet in a way that can be like that it can be referred back, or that can be used in a different hook later on. Sure.
Another game that I feel like does stuff like that is there's a game series called Valkyria Chronicles, which is a third-person shooter tactical RPG with dating sim elements. If that makes any sense, I promise it works.
Amazing.
But the characters, it's not quite this, but the characters have traits that, some of them are good, some of them are bad, and you can gain certain traits depending on events that happen like in the story. So I don't think this is an actual example, but something that could happen in this game, like to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. There might be a side quest you can do where like two of the characters become really good friends. And then after that, they both might gain a trait that is like friend of whoever the other character is. And then after that point, whenever they're near each other in combat, they gain a buff.
Sure.
Or something,
Yeah.
Stuff, that sort of thing.
I'm looking at it right now, and it marks it as a similar game to Wilder Myth in that.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, like, cause there is like the characters can become rivals or friends, or they can have a relationship, and then like there's a lot of like time passes a lot in the game, so like a character will age and basically retire, but then later on like that character's kid might show up and be like, hey, I want to join the party.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's some cool stuff there.
Cool. Dustin says, my players came into contact with magically charged water, so I used a random potion generator to determine its effects. The first guy got, this potion makes you think you are a dog. No save, no physical change, just you think you're a dog. The player role-played it beautifully. The next player got a potion that would make you only speak to animals, but he made his save. So they role-played it as if he was now convinced that he could only talk to animals. So soon I had players barking at each other in the middle of a battlefield. So yeah, that works.
Wonderful.
And then just one more. MRV73 says, I once knew a player that mixed potions and drank them for fun to see if they'd turn into a newt. Eventually, the DM, tired of the joke, told them to choose between Newt from the movie Aliens and Newt Gingrich. So, yeah. Don't go with Newt Gingrich. The Newt from Aliens is the better choice.
Sure.
All right. So yeah, that was our last social media question. Thank you everybody who wrote in. Our next social media question is, what does your character do during downtime between adventures? I feel like we've done a social media question very similar to this, but I looked and I could not find one anywhere. I tried several different keywords. So if we did it in the past, we're doing it again. Because I've got 2 weeks off and I'm so excited about having tons of downtime between adventures. So very charitably referring to my job as an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think, because like usually again, I feel like I don't play enough to have downtime in characters.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the character I'm currently playing in Jay's game. So
Sure. Yeah, like looking up or like doing research on like monsters and stuff, crafting items, that kind of thing is always fun. Mm-hmm. I think, so I guess if we're going with our current characters that we've been playing, I think one of the things I want to look into is like in the town there's a druid, I think, that's nearby.
Okay.
I want to see what they're about.
Sure.
I want to get I want my character to like strike up some sort of relationship with them. Platonic, but I'm a lizard folk in this one. I don't know if anybody's interested anyway.
Sure.
But because I'm playing my character more like he's a fighter, but I'm playing him up like kind of like a ranger hunter style character. So I don't know, I think broadening my character's horizons kind of stuff, that the thing that's gonna kind of like deepen my character's backstory or
sure
personality.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So my character in that campaign has kind of had not a crisis of faith. She's had a crisis of
mortality,
confidence, I guess. Well, yeah, because every time we get into combat, she almost dies. Well, and she's a paladin. She's like the tank of the group.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like you haven't died though, so you're a successful tank. Maybe I should give
that's
maybe
true.
My character should give your character a pep talk and be like,
maybe.
Look, nobody's died yet. So you're doing. You've only so far succeeded.
So I think we haven't had very much downtime, but she's been freaked out about that. I decided that at one point she went to the bar and just got drunk and cried some stranger's ear off for a while.
Yeah.
She bought a horror book from the bookstore. And she's been reading that in her free time. I don't know. Little stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I hope we didn't do we didn't do this question super recently, but whether we did or not, give us another answer if you can, listeners.
Like it feels familiar, but I don't think if it's something we've done, it's been a minute. I feel like it's one of those things that feels like it was only like a couple months ago, but it was probably like at least a year.
Sure. Yeah, all the time I'm like, yeah, we just did an episode about that. When was that? And it's like, oh, that was 3.5 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like we just did that, and it was like the 5th episode of this of the show.
Yeah. All right. So that'll do it for our questions for today. But before we close out, let's wind down. Let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have come before us, who have given their lives that we may have a better world to live in, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre was submitted by Seawood Scribe via Discord. First casualty in my Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign. Stevek Caltro. It's spelled like Steven, but with a K instead of an N. So Stevek is how I'm going to pronounce it. Stevek Caltro, frosty serial killer and bounty hunter, has confronted the PCs, 3rd level, at a tavern. He demanded the head of Malkin, the party sorcerer. While Malkin subtly read the minds of the tavern's patrons to see if they had any allies, Lau, the human monk, sat down at the table with Stevek and traded tense words. "You fell in with the wrong group, Lau," Stevek finally said. "Join my group. We could use you." Instead, Lau took Malkin's signal and kicked the table into Stevek, knocking him prone. Lau proceeded to do his monk thing, wailing on Stevek in true bar fight fashion. Stevek, in retribution, summoned a sword made of pure ice. One hit and crit later, Lau was bleeding out.
Oh no.
He rolled a 1 and a 2 on his death saves.
Oh no.
Luckily, his distraction gave the party enough time to clear out some of Stevek's goons, forcing his retreat and saving Malkin, at least for the time being.
Oof.
So, yeah, it's an intense situation there.
Yeah.
One good thing I will say, though, that's a cool sword. Clink. There's a sword made of ice.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if there was a way I could refer back to the coolest potion joke that you made earlier, but whatever the case, they can't all be winners, I guess. All right. That'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to InterPartyConflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Reddit, we're on our Interparty Discord, we're on Twitter at InPartyConflict. Check those out for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on the podcatcher of your choice. We are on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you want to support the show monetarily, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about Friend Quest.
Friend Quest is a YouTube channel where you can watch us play video games.
There you go. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of the great people over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games, from Nameless to Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time...
I can't believe my dragon neighbor took my sander.